Welcome everybody to the Visual Content Marketing Show. Today we're exploring best practice tips to help you market your non-fiction book. And my name is Krishna Day. I'm the host of the show. So delighted that you're able to be with me today. And I'm thrilled that I've actually got some people that you might recall having met several episodes ago. And in fact, it's the team from Book Marketing Tools. And so we'll come to them in just a minute. But let me just talk about why this event came to be. Over the last 10 years, I've worked a lot with different authors. And that includes some people that you probably would know who are writing with organizations like Wiley. And one of the things that we've always done, whether it be somebody who's self-publishing or if it's actually they're traditionally publishing, is making sure that they've got a marketing plan for what effectively is the best business card you could have in the world. And of course, with the advent of a lot more digital publishing, and that could be things that you publish on your own website, through to using some of the other outlets in terms of retail, such as Amazon, which is obviously a very popular platform, I know that there is more and more people coming into this topic. And over the years, I've covered webinars and podcasts with people around how they've gone about writing and also then publishing their books. But I know there's so many people who are coming into this area now that I thought it was really timely to actually now do a hangout around this topic. So I'm delighted that I've got Shawn Manaher and R.J. Adams of Book Marketing Tools. You'll find them on Google+, and of course you'll find them at bookmarketingtools.com. And the reason I brought them here is that they've been doing a lot of work around supporting authors, not just in terms of providing really useful content in the form of their Hangouts on Air, which is what we talked about the last time in the with us. They've taken that into podcasts, they've got articles, but they've got actual tools that will support you. So that's why we're talking about this topic today. And really, I'm going to start with yourself, Shawn, in terms of thanks so much for coming back and joining us here. And I want to start off in terms of what was your journey into starting to work with authors? Because I know RJ's an author himself, but what encouraged you to start to look at this whole topic and actually supporting authors around marketing?
Sure, great. And thanks again for allowing us to be on the show. It is such a pleasure to be here. For me, my journey into authoring and learning about the book marketing industry and books all in general has been, well, I love to read books myself, reading a lot of books at any given time. But about 2 years ago, I was exploring how could I make passive income for my business. I really am an entrepreneur, and I'm trying different things. And I heard about this Amazon publishing, and I thought, well, I think I could do it. I heard that RJ was doing it, so maybe I could do it and test it out, because it sounded like it would be something that I wanted to explore. And so I took an idea. I had just finished working in a corporate job where I did not feel empowered as a leader. I felt that the team that I was managing, I wasn't able to effectively do my job, and I felt that that was something that other managers and leaders within organizations were having struggles with. So I took that concept and idea and worked with a writer to ghostwrite under a pen name by the name of Mark G. Miller. And I said, I want to write books about leadership because I want to, number one, I want to try to do this without any platform. That is, I wanted to see, can I just, from a pen name, create interest and sales for my book? And so to my surprise, after a lot of work, which is any author is finding out that marketing a book is a ton of work, I was able to do it, and I continue to sell those books, anywhere between 3 and 6 books a day, from those books that I released 2 years ago in August of 2012.
And before we go any further in terms of talking to RJ about his journey, perhaps you can later on, if you want to, put into the event page the link to where people can find out about those books. But I'm intrigued that you actually took an approach to work with somebody else, because that is often a challenge that people have, is getting a book done. I'm guessing that was one of the reasons that you decided to partner with somebody else. Perhaps you actually invested in them as being the ghostwriter. I'm not sure what your relationship was, but that might have been a great way for you to get the content out of your head and heart, obviously, onto digital pages.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the difficulty that I find oftentimes, I'm a verbal individual, is that I could jump on one of these hangouts and I could talk, and the ideas and the thoughts and everything that's in me can come out. Well, I wouldn't say very clearly, but it can come out very easily. But I then often found that when I try to write, it's not as easy for me. And so I have since changed quite a bit of that thinking, and even my own ability to write has improved since I have been writing a lot more. But at that time, I didn't feel confident, honestly. I felt like I'm not sure I can do this by myself. So I said, you know what, let me find a ghostwriter, somebody that I've known in the past, and I know that they could deliver on the result that I was looking for. And that was a good decision for me. It really actually helped me to gain some confidence in writing even through them, and I have since continued to pursue that area.
So I know we talked last time to you, R.J., about your publishing experience. We didn't talk to Shawn about his. So perhaps you can just remind people about the fact that you also have published a number of books.
Yeah, my journey was fairly similar to Shawn's. The first book that I did, I wrote myself. It's not very long. It was just mostly a proof of concept book, and it got out there and it did really, really well. I was shocked. It was under a pen name as well, and I was shocked that I was actually able to buy coffee and then pay a car payment with my books, and it was pretty exciting. So I began publishing some more, but then I realized that authors needed some of these resources, and so I began working on a promotional tool myself, and then came alongside Shawn, and we began working on book marketing tools, and now we're here.
Okay, so I know that people who are joining us might be aspiring authors. They're looking to get that content out of themselves, and that's a great idea in terms of working with a ghostwriter. Another idea for people who are looking to take that content is, Shawn was talking about, he's very much comfortable in terms of audio. Well, there's tools such as Dragon Naturally Speaking that could take your content, or of course you have somebody transcribe it to get you at least some words onto paper or onto digital paper. But once we've actually got something moving forward, and this doesn't matter whether or not you're working with a traditional publisher or not, I know that a lot of people are struggling in terms of knowing where to get started in terms of marketing. And I've got a friend who actually has got a book being published about now with a mainstream publisher in the UK, very well-known company. But in terms of this experience they're going through, they know they're getting a limited amount of support from the publisher's PR organization. Clearly, if you start to self-publish, then you're actually all on your own. So let's start with talking about some of the biggest mistakes that we see authors are making in terms of their plan for their marketing. So Shawn, perhaps you can get this started.
Yeah, I actually I got a bonus when when we were thinking about it. I thought there's 3, maybe 4 areas that really authors are struggling with, and it's just, here's the deal: authors are writers. They write. They're not marketers, and so these sort of things that I'm going to mention, you may not even be thinking that this is even what is this about. So the first one is defining your avatar. Really trying to understand who it is that your audience is, and you're asking them questions around problem solving. What are the problems that they have? What are the solutions that you need to solve for them? In defining your avatar or personas, it might be called, you're asking questions around what do they like? Where are they hanging out online, if they're hanging out online at all? For nonfiction writers, are they on LinkedIn over Facebook, or are they on Twitter, or are they over on Google+? So when an author starts out, I find that they don't take the time to define that avatar. And the reason why an avatar is important is because it points you in the direction on where to market. It points you in the direction on what the message should be. So if your avatar is a male executive that is in their 50s or potentially 60s, well, then your message is going to be much different than if your nonfiction book is going to be something for a cooking or a recipe book that you're giving to moms who are on the go, have 3 kids, and the kids are younger. So that message is going to be different. In all of that, the messaging, all of that, the promotion, all of the where should you be promoting, how you should be positioning the emails that you write, what you should be talking about on social media, how you should be, what kind of visuals or media, all play into the fact that you've defined your avatar well enough so that you could even name that avatar. That it could be somebody that you could picture in your mind that says, this is the person that that you should be that I'm speaking to when I'm talking about or writing my book. That's at least one that I have.
Cool. One of the things that I think authors struggle with is they try to do it all by themselves, whether like your friend's experience of kind of being hung out to dry by their publisher, whether they're traditionally publishing, or even if they're self-publishing, they get into that mindset of they have to do it all themselves because they're self-publishing, and that's just not the case. Like Shawn wouldn't have got his book out probably at all if he had just tried to do it all by himself. Instead, he partnered with somebody who was able to execute on the parts that he wasn't, and he was able to get the book out. And the same goes with marketing. A lot of stuff you do need to do by yourself. You do need to connect with readers. You do need to do stuff like that. But then there's that next step of using other people's platforms. And this is a perfect example. We're able to promote our business by being on your show, and that's what you can do with a nonfiction topic especially. It's a lot easier. A lot of fiction authors are like, well, where do I go? Where do I go? But if you have a nonfiction book, your topic and your niche is a lot more defined. At least it should be. And so you know who you want to target, like Shawn said. Then you just have to find where online those people are hanging out and use those people's audiences. If your topic is about online marketing, find those podcasts, find those Hangout on Airs, find those blogs that talk about online marketing and reach out to them. Do guest posts, do those interviews, and you'll be able to use those people's audiences to get your book out there. If you're just trying to do it yourself, you're going to struggle.
Okay, so let me give an idea that I have for everybody listening and watching, of course, and that's about leaving your marketing to start when your book is done and you've got it from the publisher. Don't start marketing it then. You need to have started marketing when you're writing the book, and that's a huge mistake I think people make. And I'll give you a couple of examples because we're going to give you some examples as we go through our time together, and we're going to come to innovative examples. But let's just take 2 authors that, because we talk about marketing here, particularly visual content marketing, I'm going to give you 2 examples of what some authors have done in the world of marketing. And one of them is a gentleman called Jay Baer, who has written a number of books now. But for one of the things he did for his last book is he actually had a very simple, responsive website, which meant it was going to work easily on all devices. And it was a landing page, effectively, with a little video, if I remember rightly. But it invited you to leave your name and email address if you wanted to know about the launch of his book. So he was telling you about that. So he wasn't, posting on all the social media channels all the time, or on his blog about what he's doing, but he made sure that you knew how you could learn more about the book, and he gave you the option of actually putting your name and your email address in. I want to give you the second one because I'm really interested, as you know, on This is the Visual Content Marketing Show, and that's an author called Anne Handley, and you may have come across her book. It's actually been published less than a month ago, I think now, and it's already hit the top list of I think it was the New York Times bestseller list already, or that list that they've had in this last month. And her book's called Everybody Writes, and what she did is she uses Instagram a lot, and she's very active on all forms of social media. She also has a blog, but she's terrific in terms of posting photographs. And she took you through a story. She took you through the journey in terms of that book getting completed. And I've seen a couple of authors do that, but she's the most recent one I saw. And in fact, even to the extent of she's working with her publisher to provide also some, as they call it, swag, some free gifts. Now, unfortunately, it's not available, or they weren't available if you were outside of the US, but it was also encouraging people to actually pre-order the book. And she did that in a really good visual way. She also had it on her blog, but actually she was taking you on the journey of her writing that book and completing the manuscript, and then actually making sure you knew that she'd got the cover of the book back, and so on. So people were excited and really engaged, and a lot of comments and a lot of likes on her content on Instagram. So that's the third tip we've got for you. And I'm going to come back to yourself, Shawn. Maybe you've got another idea about another mistake people make.
Yeah, I think that, again, as authors are just starting out, they may fail, and I think the example that Jay Baer is doing there is a good example of this, but a good example of what to do is building your email list early and often. When you're starting out, whether for nonfiction or fiction, you want to give people a teaser, an opportunity to get connected with you. So maybe you can build your list early by offering a snippet of the first chapter of the book as an example of the writing that they can expect during the other 20 chapters that you're writing. And so I think that building an email list is really important. Creating a system within that email that you give them an offer, they subscribe to you, and then on a weekly basis or however often you're sending them a regular email, so that it's not only a way in which to connect with you to sell the book, but just to add value to the subscribers and the brand that you're trying to build. And from there, if you're going to build an email list, you might as well measure the results. So as somebody just starting out, if you're going to get into book marketing, you want to measure the result. And for email, you're looking at email open rates, you're looking at click rates, you're looking at opt-in, in total conversion. Are you getting sales from the email campaigns that you're doing?
So why don't we turn our attention now in terms of innovative and impactful book marketing campaigns you've seen for non-fiction books. And if you could go back maybe over the last year, perhaps that there's some things that come to mind. So RJ, perhaps you can start us off with that.
Sorry. The thing that I think is most important for those who are promoting their books is just to make sure that you get all the basics in line. The problem of I understand your question of wanting to go the innovative route and the exciting route, but going the purposeful, make sure you have all the basics, like make sure you have that email list, make sure you have your social profiles, make sure that your website is dialed in properly, making sure you have all those things in place before you do any other types of marketing, I think is really the thing that people need to have in place. Because you could do an awesome campaign on Kickstarter, you could have all these things, but if you don't have your basic platform elements in place from the start, then you're going to miss out on a lot of things. While that innovative idea may touch somebody, if they want to go for more information and they can't find you on Twitter where they interact, then you're going to lose out on somebody. Or if your website really doesn't provide much very clear, direct path to buying your book, then you might miss out on that sale if they have to click around and do too much clicking. So I think that before going for any type of big, innovative, splashy type of promotions, having those basics intact is really important.
And what about yourself then, Shawn? What are your thoughts on that question?
Yeah. I think RJ was looking at my notes, and we didn't even talk before the show to compare, but the reality in my mind, innovation is not about creating something brand new. It's actually about augmenting tools, ideas, and concepts that already exist into something that works for you to market your book. And so if we think of it that way, is that there's nothing new under the sun, but what there is that there's all these tools and ideas, and you find something that's going to work for you. So that, to me, is going to be innovation. And so innovation then for an author who is in nonfiction, maybe you use webinars to host and show your expertise in whatever area that you are in. Dr. Tammy Kashan, we've been talking about the fact that she's a chiropractor, and she is into wellness and chiropractic care. And so my encouragement towards her is that do a webinar, host an HOA, and show your expertise as a chiropractor in giving people even a tour around your office that will allow you to not only show the value of who you are as a business owner, but then how does that translate into book sales? Well, by building and showing your expertise in that way, when it's time to sell that book, and let's say it's well before it's already written and published, you've already built an audience and shown your expertise in that way. That's at least one area. The other would be people who have who are thinking of doing a book party. As somebody that we interviewed, they said their author that they were working with said, well, I've done Tupperware parties, so why can't I do a book party? And sure enough, they took the time to figure it out how they were going to do a book party like a Tupperware party, and they were able to sell books. That was one way that really worked well. The last example that I thought was really good was Ryan Hanley. He's very popular here on Google Plus, and really is making a name for himself within social media. And what he did is he funded his book launch, or the writing and the production of his book through contentwarfarebook.com, where he got, I think, $10,000 to write his book by using one of the crowdsourcing platform or fund sourcing platforms that are out there. And so those are innovative ways. They definitely were tied to the type of person that they are. And so for Ryan and for those that did the book party, those had to work within who they were as authors and individuals, but they just simply used it as a platform and augmented it into something that worked for them.
I think the key idea and the key takeaway from that is having an innovative mindset as treating your book as a product in your business. Oftentimes, and you mentioned that a book is a really great business card, probably one of the best ones out there, but a lot of times people will write a book and then just think of it as just that business card. And if you think of it that way, then it's not going to be a successful product line for you, and that might not be your goal for the book. But if you are wanting to make more sales with your book, then you need to treat it as a product. And I think that's pretty innovative for a lot of people to make that switch in their mindset to not, oh, this is just my book, to this is one of my products in my business that I need to promote. And so, yeah, I think that is the key. And so you need to have that that different mindset when you're going forward.
Okay, so my chip in of an idea is actually I want to follow up in terms of what you were saying around the fact of both of you were saying is around doing things really well and the innovation coming from that and building processes. But I want to stick with the idea of video again because this is the visual content marketing show. I want to give you a couple of examples. So a friend of mine and somebody that some people may know if you follow content in social media marketing is Mari Smith. And back to the idea of having a kind of a party, I remember several years ago that she used a webinar platform. And of course you could do that with Google Hangouts or other live streaming tools and lots of other tools you could use. But she actually had a huge long launch party for her book. And it was a party, and it was people coming in and asking questions, and she dressed up the part, and she had all her party gear there. And because she'd built a platform, she'd got people who were really love her. I mean, they adore her work. And like everybody, not everybody's for everybody, but she has a huge number of people who adore her work, and they came along and celebrated. And she also gave away a number of those books during that event. Now, she's got a certain personality that will pull that off. Not everybody's going to want to do that. But let's take it to another way where, in fact, as you were saying, this is a platform for you guys to talk about your expertise and your business. But you could do that in terms of actually finding people, and you could have a virtual book tour. So don't leave the networking and building relationships till you need them. Build those relationships throughout your career and then start to look at who is it that might actually be interested in you bringing great content to their audience, just like these guys do. That's why I've brought them back a second time. So how can they provide great content to your audience? And I'm going to give you a third example here, and that's somebody else in the world of marketing, and that's Chris Brogan, who, again, some people might know. And I followed Chris's work for years and years and years. And do I really need another marketing book? Probably not. And my iPad, my iPhone, I should say, is actually filled up with hundreds of books that I've purchased over the years on Amazon. But what he did is actually he took that idea of actually talking about his book, and he had something like a 45-minute to an hour's keynote that he delivered in one particular situation. And I'd heard about his book, and I had not been tempted to make that purchase. And it's not necessarily expensive as an investment to buy a book, but he delivered an amazing keynote where he stood on stage, and all he did is he had his book in hand, and he had pages, sticky notes in his book, and he went and he actually built his speech around his book. And he did such a good job that actually I couldn't wait to buy his book. And that event wasn't something that I saw physically here where I'm based in Ireland. I saw it in terms of because it was being live streamed or there was a recording of it. And so the idea of actually telling people what's in your book, that is going to sell your book, because people want to hear more. And so I was left at the end of 45 minutes to an hour. Even though I know Chris, I've known his work, I see his writing, I'm in the business of marketing, there's rarely kind of something that comes out that's can be completely different. But by the end of what he said, it's like, okay, I really need to buy the book. So that's my idea of actually building on some ideas that perhaps you've already had. So, all right, so guys, I'm going to come back to yourself then, Shawn, and I want to look at, let's take the self-published author who's working with Amazon, which you and RJ obviously know a thing or two about. And I want you to really kind of demystify this whole thing about being an Amazon bestseller. And there's been lots of situations where I know people have gamed things, and there's been authors that have been written about, and you have to be careful about how you work with Amazon. But there's one of the things that people do like to have is to say, we were the bestseller in whatever category or on the 5 categories. And so I want you to talk us through, is that important that we get that ranking rather than just monetary reasons? Is there a benefit in it? And actually, what does it take? Maybe some insider secrets. And I know you've got some tools that also can help people around this.
Sure. There is so much that could be said about the importance of being ranked well. And ultimately, if you're not all authors are going to be competitive, and not all authors need to feel like, oh my gosh, in order for me to be successful, I have to have this little label that Amazon actually puts on my book that says best-selling. And I do want to throw that out there, that for those authors that are just looking to pay a bill with their books, you don't have to be listed as a best-selling author in order to pay a bill. If you're looking to be the #1 in all that you do, then, well, there's a ton of stuff that you could do in order to become a best-selling author on Amazon. And I want to talk about real quick, when I look at my own business and what we're doing at Book Marketing Tools and Reading Deals. Yesterday I did, or I forget when, I did some calculation as to kind of on one side of the scale was everything that I knew that we could be doing at Book Marketing Tools and Reading Deals in order for us to be the very best in what we are doing. I looked at all of the activity that could be done around video, around podcasting, around doing HOAs, around doing all the social media, email marketing, all of those activities, and it calculated out that in order for us to be #1 in all that we're doing, it would require 40 hours of work a day. That translates into like $350,000 to $450,000 in total marketing cost in order for us to be the best in everything that we could possibly be. And I want to throw that out there because I think there's this idea out there that #1, that you have to do everything. Well, quite honestly, even as a business owner in what we're doing, we can't do it all. So then on the other side is, on the scale, is this is everything that you could do. Now on the other side is reality as to what can I do. And just a realization when in order to become a bestseller in Amazon, there just needs to be this understanding that you have limited time and resources, and that's going to dictate how successful you are or not. I did want to throw that out there just to make sure that people understand you can't do it all, and that's okay. But what you can do when you are out there and the activities that you could do in order to become a best-selling author on Amazon is know your category. That is, within the category that you have, if you're talking about leadership, realize that the leadership category in Amazon is going to be very competitive. So what does that mean? What does that mean, and so what? What that means then for you is as an author is you need to realize that in order for you to rank and be a bestseller, well, you're going to have to be a bit more competitive than the other person that might be talking about Amish quilts in South America. I don't know if that's a category, right? But the idea is that dependent on how your category is positioned in Amazon, that is, what's the ranking within that category, you're going to have to determine what's going to be the actions necessary in order for you to compete. So understanding your category, the best defense is a good offense, in my opinion. That is, if you're going to rank and try to be the bestseller, then write the best book that you can for that category, and don't hold anything back. Don't wait for book 2 to be to share all your secrets. You really only have that one chance, and certainly you want to build on that and write multiple books, but write the best work that you can possible.
So let's ask you then a few questions around those people who are writing purely digital books for Amazon. I'm not talking about looking at other tools for it. Let's say somebody had an idea of, we've talked about kind of repurposing content. So let's say somebody has got a series of webinars or podcasts that they think, I'm going to repurpose that and put that out as a series. I don't want to have it as a kind of a mega publication of 400 pages. I want to start to get that out there. Let's take the person who's got a smaller book than the huge one, because the huge one might take us forever to get done for all sorts of reasons. What kind of thoughts might you have around tips around how they could work out what the best category might be for that kind of a subset of a book, and also the things that they might do to help them get ranked? Because I know that there's a particular product or website that you've recently launched which seems to me could actually also help people. Maybe you can tell us about that. I don't know which one of you'd like to start with that.
Yeah, I'll jump in. So the key to ranking higher on Amazon is sales, and more importantly, sales velocity. So just having, if they went strictly on lifetime sales, then books that have been around longer will always be on top. But Amazon doesn't want that. They want the hottest books that are selling the most right now. So it's a combination of sales velocity and lifetime sales and sales in the last 3 months, the last 3 weeks. We don't have the exact algorithm, but from what people have dialed in, the sales velocity is a key point. And you had also asked earlier about what the benefit is of being a bestseller and if we should even aim for that. And when you're a bestseller on Amazon, they begin promoting you on all this. Sometimes you show up in people's emails. Sometimes you show up in their advertising campaigns. Sometimes you can show up in the also bought section, so where it lists books that are also bought by people who buy that book. You'll begin showing up on other people's pages. So the benefit of being a bestseller, even within your small little niche category, will help you to get additional sales that are driven by Amazon. But the key focus, so there's one ways to get sales, and that's by using other people's platforms. And you mentioned our own platform, readingdeals.com. We recently launched readingdeals.com, and what we do is we go and find readers who want to learn about book promotions, whether it's a bargain book or a free book. And so if you're an author, you can run a bargain promo for your book by reducing the price for a limited time, or you can make it free for a limited time, and you can use websites like ours to promote your book. And so then we'll reach our audience. We send an email out to our readers every single day, and they want to know about these kinds of books. And so using websites like that, running different promotions, is one of those ways to be able to boost your sales. Because then if you're getting a lot of sales and you're getting a lot of sales velocity in that small period of time, 1 or 2 days or 3 days that you're running the promotion, then your book will jump higher up in the sales ranking for Amazon, which will get you closer to that bestseller status, and which will help you get more additional sales from being promoted on those bestseller lists.
And I'm going to wrap this part of the conversation up around the fact of that happened to somebody who I know last week. I don't know that he got to bestseller, but because I didn't check his final stats. But the last time I looked, he was at number 5, if I remember rightly. And what he did is he actually has a podcast, and his name is Paul Colligan, and I've known him for probably 10 years. We spoke on the same stage about 10 years ago on the topic of podcasting. And he's actually got a short podcast. He repurposed his podcast, and he took the first, I think it was 15 episodes, and created an ebook. And he told people about it beforehand, but he also primed people, because it goes back to what we were hearing from Shawn before about the email. He actually primed people in his email about the fact that he had a book that was coming out, and if you wanted to buy it, in fact, don't buy it now, because he was going to do a promotion. And it just so happens he was hoping that the promotion would happen the same day as National Podcast Day in the US, which was the 30th of September. Unfortunately, it was the day after. But even then, he actually got, I think, on National Podcast Day, he got to number 5. Now, he's taken this approach several times. So in that particular case, he's been running a podcast. He took the content, he repurposed it. I'm sure he'd edited it. He had a great book cover, and then he told people about it. But he made it available for free on a particular day. And as I said, I haven't checked his final rankings in terms of what he got to. But even with that in his category that he went after, he was in that top 5. So I hope that's some tips that those of you who are thinking about that as a platform, you'll find helpful. So let's take a look now at the person who's an established author, and their sales have started to dry up a bit. They're finding it difficult to turn those books over. Shawn, what's the few tips that you'd give that person? So they've already had their book out, maybe it's been out a few years, they don't have it in them because it's non-fiction to write another one. The content is still relevant. What could they do?
So I have 7 areas that they could focus on, and certainly each of these could be another show. So we'll just go very high level and kind of hit it real quick. Review their avatar. We talked about that earlier on. Really understand their avatar again. What are the problems that they're trying to solve for them, and what could they do in order to help help themselves sell more books by reviewing that avatar and getting back in touch with their audience. Assess your assets. Determine what assets do I currently have in place, whether it's the book itself, a blog, or podcast, that you could then refresh and look at and try and share with others. In that process, you can determine and build a new offer. So earlier on we talked about, hey, why don't you create an offer, that first chapter? Well, why can't you do an updated idea or thoughts about, even if it's a 5-page small guide on updates for the book that you've recently written, and give it away for free? By building that offer, you're then giving people the opportunity to get back in touch with you, have something fresh, some new ideas around that book that might be going stagnant. From there, all of that has to go out on distribution. So are you blogging? Are you on HOAs like this HOA? Are you doing a podcast? Are you trying to solve the problems for the avatar that you have? And if you are, get onto platforms and ask to be guests. Be bold and say, you know what, I want to be a guest because I have some expertise in this area. From there, when you're looking on being out there on social media, you want to establish a list. That is, establish a list of individuals that you want to connect with in social media that are going to be the most effective at being able to distribute your information. And so, we know on Google Plus that there are 1,000 people that we should all know and get to know. But really, there might be only 25 within your niche area that you should focus on to really understand. Find out what their needs are and be a support to them so that you can get on their HOAs, you can get on their blogs as guests, and that sort of thing. From there, if you already have a list and it's been a while since you've connected with them, then get back on that list and sell to your list. You don't have to go right out of the gate, but warm them back up. Remind them that you do exist as an author and that you would like to connect with them again. And be honest about that. If it didn't work out, the first book, and it's been a while since it's had any sales, be honest. Say, hey, it's been a while since we've connected, but I want to reconnect. I have some new content that I want to add to this, and here you go. Finally, in all of this, we kind of alluded to it and talked about it, was engage. If you're going to establish new life into the sales of your book, then engage with people on a one-to-one basis or one-to-many basis, however you can make it happen, but just be genuine and engage with people. So those are my seven ideas around what you could do to kind of reestablish yourself as an author and boost the sales for your book.
There's a book in that almost, isn't there, Shawn?
Absolutely.
Okay, RJ, how would you like to contribute to this question?
Shawn pretty much nailed it all, but in your initial question, you said they don't have it in them to write the next book. Mm-hmm. And I think what they need to do is just find a way to get it in them to write that next book. And then the next book, and then the next book. The problem is when you just have one book and you're putting all your marketing energy into selling that one book, all you've done is just sell one book. And you'll make a couple bucks from that, and even if you do that several times, that can be really good for you. But if you have 5 books out there and you do all that marketing and somebody comes across one of your books, buys it, loves it, then they might buy all the rest of your books or maybe even just one of your books. So then all of that work to get that one sale now turns into 2 sales or 3 sales, 4 sales, 5 sales. And so having those multiple books out there shouldn't just be overlooked, and it should really be something that you're striving to do. Because it gives something else for them to buy if they like your one book, and 2, it's another avenue for them to come in. that one book that you're really trying to promote might not really appeal to them initially, but if you have another book out there on a very similar topic but not exactly, then that might appeal to them, and that's another inroad for them to come into your business, to know about you, to get onto your email list by having that other book out there. So that would be my contribution, is to find a way, whether it's using a ghostwriter to get it produced or whatever it is, to get that additional book out there. I know it's not the same for nonfiction, but the same kind of concept applies with fiction authors. They found that after the 5th or 7th book that they really start to see a boost in their sales, and then once they hit that 12th book, they really start to see those sales. And some of the top names in the indie publishing arena didn't even become popular until they've had several books out there. Hugh Howey, who was our guest on our second episode this season, in his interview he talked about was his 8th book that was the one that took off. And he was just excited. I mean, he's like the face of indie publishing now, and it took his 8th book to really boost his career. And so, and then once he had that 8th book, when that took off, he was able to sell 7 other books to people who really fell in love with that book, and they wanted to buy that book. And that just significantly magnified his sales and was able to boost him that much further into the bestseller status by having all of those additional books out there.
You're going to have freaked so many people out about selling them. They need to have that many books. RJ, I'm going to come back to you now for a quick tip from you about how do you keep that momentum up? What's your secret about churning out those books, writing out those books time after time? Is there something secret that you're doing every day? Is there kind of a special time of the year that you do that? Tell us the one thing you're doing.
Have a plan and execute it. I usually start with my books. I don't write that much. I definitely wish I could. But that's definitely something I should be doing and one should be doing. But when I am writing and I'm able to write fast, is I start with an outline. I outline the entire book so I know what I'm going to write. Then I just sit down and start writing each piece at a time. Then once it's all done, comb through it, make sure it looks all good, create smooth transitions between all the different topic areas, and then get help by having somebody edit it, having somebody format it, having somebody design the cover, because I'm not that great at any of those things. I can kind of do all those things, but having somebody else do it allows me to focus on my marketing for that book while it's still being created, basically formatted, edited, cover designed, and then once I'm able to upload it, then you can start publishing it. Then you can start promoting it, and that's not what I meant. Then you can begin promoting it even heavier. You should have already been promoting it while it's being written, but that's the way to get it out quicker, is one, have a process, outlining it, getting through it, and then having help.
Okay, so I've got a few thoughts that you guys have prompted me to bring to the front of my mind as you were going through this, particularly if you've actually had a book that's been published for some time ago. And if you are an independent publisher, or if you're using tools like Amazon, I really like the fact of what you were saying there, RJ, about your book cover. Perhaps you need to refresh your book cover. And the other thing I can tell you is there's a psychology around colors, and there's a psychology about what works, and it's different in different countries. So it's back to that whole conversation about your avatar and where they are, and actually getting the right version of the book out there. So maybe that's one thing you could do. The second thing, it made me think about another friend of mine, again, very well known in the world of marketing, a book I highly recommend you do invest in if you're exploring social media marketing, and that's The New Rules of Marketing and PR by David Meerman Scott. I think it's probably on its 5th edition. He's updated it. It was one of the biggest sellers. It must be probably the biggest seller on the topic now, and I can't even remember how many tens of countries. It's 30-something countries probably now that actually it's been published in. He's written lots of more books since. I think that was first published in about 2006, but he keeps updating it, he keeps refreshing it, he keeps making sure it's relevant. And then the third thought it made me think about is that not only the book cover, but when you first started and published that book, visual content probably wasn't as important as it is now. And visual content is really important in terms of from your website through to your social media marketing, through to actually taking things offline as well. And there's increasingly lots of free tools such as canva.com, which I use every single day, sometimes several times a day, to create visual content. If you have got a limited budget and you can't go to somebody with design skills outside or inside your organization, then I'd take a look at that as a platform. They've even got, in fact, cover templates now for books. I'm not suggesting that's the only place you should go, but if you have a zero budget, or in fact even for one of their images that they've got on their site, it's only $1 to use one of the images, but it's making design so much easier. But I would say take some of the quotes from your book and actually make that available. And you could make that available online or offline. Offline, it could be in terms of, let's say, on bookmarks, and then in terms of online, it could be, if you're on social media, it could be the images you put with Twitter. I can guarantee you put an image with your tweets, you will get more retweets than no image at all. And that is just a proven fact, and I'd encourage you to go and test it. And again, Canva has got tools that allow you to create images that are relevant and in terms of the right size for Twitter, right size for Facebook, right size for Instagram. You could use a square image for that, and the right size in terms of for Pinterest. And so that's a really great and free tool that you could use. So visual content, take quotes and get them into content that you can use across all your channels, and put them into your presentations if you're speaking as well. So guys, let's wrap up in terms of, I started to talk about offline there, and the idea of actually having bookmarks, and that's a really good free tool for people to have. I mean, obviously it's a little bit of investment to actually create them, but I found by doing that kind of thing, where you maybe put tips on from your book onto a bookmark, leave several of them around, I found that for some of my content, it's ended up on the different side of the country or a different continent, and you make sure there's your URL there with people can easily get back to you. What's one thing that you would do, R.J., in terms of marketing your book offline, and then we'll come to yourself, Shawn?
The one thing I would make sure that I'm doing, especially now, is use a QR code that goes directly to the book sales page. On that bookmark, on the flyer that you put up at the free community bulletin boards or whatever, have that QR code, because most people are starting to learn what those are and how to use them, and they can scan that, go right to your book, and then they can scroll through to decide if they want to buy it or not. So I would say that if you're doing any type of offline marketing, that use a QR code that goes directly to your book sales page.
And Shawn?
Yeah, and so to add to that, I would say I do a lot of networking offline. So I go to networking events quite a bit, and one of the things that in the process of being in a closed networking group, which I'm part of, is that I was able to share an 8-minute presentation about myself and my business. And now I just simply, in passing, let people know that I've written a couple of books and they're on Amazon. I gave them, my name that was under Amazon. A couple weeks later, somebody had searched for me. They found the book. They told me about it in a couple meetings later about how much they really loved the book. And I am now doing business with that person because I simply, in passing, told them, oh, by the way, I'm an author and I put something up on Amazon. And so that is a huge opportunity, especially in the nonfiction. Nonfiction authors, if you're a business person and you're really trying to understand, how can you leverage all of this work that you're doing online in your offline world, well, if you go into networking events, make mention of it. It's a really good idea, I think.
Well, I think we've covered so many ideas for people today. I hope that at least there's one that people might be able to take on board. But before we do that, I know you guys have got free ebooks. You've got other tools that you have. Shawn, perhaps you can tell people about how they can find out about them. And, of course, your author hangout, which is coming back tomorrow, as it so happens, in terms of for Series 2. So I want you to kind of give people all the resources that you guys can bring to bear in terms of supporting them with their book marketing.
There's so much. Does RJ get a chance as well?
If you'd like.
When I look at everything that we're doing at Book Marketing Tools, we really want to make sure that we're bringing the value. So the one thing that if somebody is not, if they're just starting with writing the book, or they're in the middle of it publishing, or they've published it and don't know how to market, go to bookmarketingtools.com/free guide. And there we have the ultimate author checklist that will walk you through step by step all the things that you could do in order to market your book. The other thing that I would encourage folks to do, and RJ can talk about reading deals and the other tools that we have, but the other thing is that we're on a mission, literally a mission, in order to win a grant for $150,000 from Chase Bank. And what this is that they're working with 20 different small businesses in order to give them a grant of $150,000. The first qualifying round requires that we have 250 votes in order for us to go and to be looked at. And so we're at 167 votes. So we don't have that many more to go. But if you go to bookmarketingtools.com/mission, that will redirect you to the place where you can vote for us. And I really hope that you would. And thanks again, Krishna, for letting me be on the show here.
Oh, you're welcome. RJ, what are you going to tell us that you've got in store for people?
So as I mentioned, readingdeals.com, whether you know somebody who wants to get free ebooks and bargain ebooks every day, you can have them go there and sign up as a reader. Or if you're an author wanting to promote your book, then you can go to readingdeals.com and go to our advertise page to learn how to submit your bargain book details. We also have our ebook submission tool that if you're running a free book promotion, it allows you to submit to 30 plus free ebook websites in just a matter of minutes. If you're going to do that manually, you'll want to block out a few hours of your time. If you want to save a little time, you can use our tool and submit to those sites in just a matter of minutes. We're also working on a new tool to help authors to get reviews easier, so that's almost there. So if you join us at bookmarketingtools.com, and if you get on our mailing list there, then we'll definitely let you know about that as soon as it comes out.
And don't forget, guys, get over to bookmarketingtools.com, because if you can't watch the Hangouts and don't want to watch Hangouts, that's not your thing, you can actually follow the content on the podcast, and they've got great blog articles there as well. They've got a great season of guests that are coming up. So really, thanks again, you two, in terms of being back. And as you did the last time, you provided loads of great tips. I know we've got some thanks for you from the audience in terms of finding your content really of assistance. But as you know, and anybody who's been with us for previous shows, that this content is all delivered free of charge for people. And thank you so much for gifting your time here today. So I really want to always finish with our call to action, which is all about, in terms of making sure that you actually take some of the ideas, the tips and suggestions, maybe go off and have a look at some of the examples we've talked about from people today, and think about one thing that you might adopt or adapt or apply to your business. We're not suggesting you do all of these things. We know that, particularly if you're in the world of nonfiction, there's lots of other things you're involved in. Don't try and do it alone. Either find tools, such as you've heard about today, to help you automate it, or find people to help you do it, and build that plan for marketing your book to deliver against the vision you had initially for it. So we would love to know if there's one particular thing that you decide to do. And I know that both Shawn and RJ would appreciate your feedback in terms of both here on this show, of course, on their own shows as well. And then, of course, if you are looking for assistance and you need a conversation about your digital marketing, you can come on over and you can join me for a help out. And you'll find me over at helpoutsformarketing.com. And so we can schedule time. My calendar's up to date there with time that's available. And if there's not a time slot that works for you, then you can certainly message me there. Or, of course, you guys all know how to get to me anyway through Google Plus and all the other social networks that I'm on. And I really appreciate the fact that you've been here with us for the Visual Content Marketing Show. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I know that I always enjoy my conversations with RJ and Shawn, And do go out and listen for them, again, for their other shows, their podcasts, their hangouts, and check out their content. Definitely download that checklist if you are an author or somebody who aspires to be an author. It's a really good checklist for you to work through. And I hope I'll see you again in terms of the future episode of the Visual Content Marketing Show. Thanks so much for joining us.